can't see the clock, but I think it's close enough. All right, Madam Secretary, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the March 2025 open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. FERC's mission is to assist consumers in obtaining reliable, safe, and economically efficient energy services at a reasonable cost through appropriate regulatory and market means and collaborative efforts. The purpose of the open meeting is for the Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted in accordance with the Government and Sunshine Act. Members of the public are invited to observe, which includes attending, listening, and taking notes, but does not include participating in the meeting or addressing the Commission. Actions that purposely interfere or attempt to interfere with the commencement or conducting of the meeting or inhibit the audience's ability to observe or listen to the meeting are not permitted. This includes attempts by audience members to address the Commission while the meeting is in progress. Any persons engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave the building. Anyone who refuses to leave voluntarily will be escorted from the building. Additionally, documents presented to the Chairman, Commissioners, or staff during the meeting will not become part of the official record of any Commission proceeding, nor will they require further action by the Commission. If you wish to comment on an ongoing proceeding before the Commission, please visit our website for more information. Also, representatives from FERC's Office of Public Participation are located just outside of the Commission meeting room to answer questions and assist the public with submission inquiries. Thank you for your cooperation. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. This is the time and place that has been duly noted for the open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to consider matters that have been duly posted by the Commission. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Madam Secretary, and good morning to everybody. I first want to thank my colleague, former Chairman and Commissioner Willie Phillips, for the great soundtrack. That was his soundtrack today, and I came down early to listen to it. It was great. And next month, DJ Rosner will be the one. Okay, he's on notice. All right, first of all, I just want to, in opening remarks, thank my colleagues and thank all the staff of FERC. We've had a very successful and productive month since the last meeting. The Secretary mentioned we got 57 notational orders out, but we got a lot more than that done. I detailed a lot of the stuff that we accomplished here at FERC in the 2 letters I sent to OPM, and I'm going to continue to send. What'd you do last week? We did a lot, and I'm going to detail that in those letters. Just to highlight 2 things that we got accomplished since the last letter, one under the Federal Power Act, one under the Natural Gas Act. Under the Federal Power Act, we unanimously approved the Southeast Energy Exchange market. That had come back to us. To quote the Grateful Dead, what a long, strange trip it's been. I was actually I think I'm the only one left who was there at the beginning of the long, strange trip when we had the tie vote, 2-2. And then it went to the D.C. Circuit, and then it came back, and then we took more pleadings. But we got a really good order out, unanimous order, recognizing that the Southeast is not the Northeast, the Southeast is not California, the Southeast is not the Midwest. SEAM is not PJM, it's not MISO. It is a regional alternative, and I'm really glad all of us came together to put out a good order, recognizing and letting SEAM continue to grow and to flourish. Under the Natural Gas Act, I would mention we had an important order last week. We approved Cheniere's expansion of their LNG facility at Corpus Christi, Texas. That was a very good move for us. So we're getting the job done. We're getting our work done efficiently and effectively. And again, thank all my colleagues and all the staff, both the 11th Floor staff and the staff throughout the building, for the good work we're getting done. A couple of announcements. Be on the lookout. Benjamin and his team are working on a FERC.gov homepage redesign that's going to emphasize the cost of power to consumers and the reliability of the power consumers are getting. You can't get more important than the cost of power to consumers and the reliability of power that consumers are getting. And we're going to have a good addition to the FERC.gov webpage, and you'll be obviously hearing about it and seeing it when it's ready. Mention again, April 30, FERC NARUC Collaborative meeting right here in this room. The topic's going to be gas electric coordination with an emphasis on storage. We've got a great lineup of speakers, and that'll be a good day. June 4 to 5, we're going to be having the Resource Adequacy Technical Conference, again, right here in this room. We have a great lineup of panelists. I think that's going to be a don't-miss event for if you care about resource adequacy, and everybody does and should. Now, that's all I got, so let's move on to my colleagues. Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Also, thank you for putting me on the spot with the music today. You know, in my household, we say any day that starts with Leonard Skinner and Sam Cooke is a good day. It's a good day.
It is. It is.
I also want to acknowledge and applaud you. I'll say publicly here what I said to you privately for your leadership and for the letters that you've put out, really documenting all the great work that we do and staff does in particular. That is much appreciated. Thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. Speaking of staff, also want to acknowledge that this is Women's History Month, and in particular, I want to talk about the amazing women that work here at FERC. And I can tell you, we have great staff across the board. You've heard all of us say this many, many times.
Right.
But to take this opportunity and just tell you that what you see working here at FERC is not representative of what you see across the industry. When you look at this table and the amazing women that help lead our departments and divisions here at FERC, this is unusual. And I thank you all for your service. I only have one item I want to talk about on the agenda today, and that is the SPP RTO West expansion proposal. In my view, this proposal will likely enhance grid reliability and operational efficiency by consolidating transmission management under a single RTO. I will note that in this proceeding, we do not have a complete picture regarding the seams between the markets or between markets and non-market areas. In the near future, I hope we can address seams issues like data sharing, congestion management, market power mitigation, transmission availability, export-import management, and inter-tie optimization to maximize reliability and consumer benefits. And that's all I have. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Rosner.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. March has been a busy month for us, and I just want to start off by thanking my colleagues here on the Commission, the Chairman for your leadership, and especially Commission staff for delivering an important suite of orders for us to consider today, which I believe, we'll see in a few minutes, will all receive unanimous support. So really a pleasure. This month, including the agenda today and notational decisions we voted out earlier, we've worked on some really important proposals. We've expanded electricity markets in the eastern and western interconnections. We've implemented Order 2023 interconnection reforms. We've expanded existing natural gas facilities. We've incentivized electric transmission construction and more. We even issued an order to support the repowering of the Palisades nuclear power plant in Michigan. This project will return 800 megawatts of clean, dispatchable power in MISO, with the possibility of adding an additional 600 megawatts of small modular reactor units in future years. So you've heard me say this before, but I'll say it again. We need a dual-track approach to realize the opportunities presented by our growing energy demand and expanding energy supply. One track is building out new infrastructure we need, and the other is making the best use of what we already have, and we've done both this month. On that topic of bringing more infrastructure online, I'm also very excited to support the 4 orders today implementing Order 2023, generator interconnection reforms. Now we'll hear more about the queues during the State of the Markets report presentation later this morning, but the preview here is the queues are as backlogged as ever. Over 2 million megawatt hours of generation just waiting to connect to the grid. And this comes as we saw load growth, 3 to 8% last year across the country, And NERC is also telling us that the pace is expected to accelerate during the rest of this decade, possibly requiring over 100 gigawatts of new generation. So it's clear to me that implementing the reforms of Order 2023 as soon as possible is essential, and we have some work to do to make that possible here. But also, we need continued innovation to connect more energy of all types to the grid, and we need to do it faster. So I'd like to take a quick moment here to highlight some amazing work that's been going outside of FERC to streamline interconnection through automation. There are currently several different interconnection automation tools being deployed by grid operators across the country, and the initial results that I got briefed on this past month are showing that they can dramatically reduce the time, cost, and intensive technical labor associated with the interconnection study process. One application reproduced the manual study of a large interconnection cluster from 686 days the old way to 10 days with the new software. Another application reports the ability to reduce cluster restudy time from months and weeks to less than a day. So I want to also emphasize these examples, they're not pilots, they're active deployments. And to be clear, interconnection automation is complex. We still have a lot to learn and explore about these new tools, and none of this can be done overnight. But to me, these early results suggest transformative potential to reduce backlog queues and connect needed energy resources to the grid faster and more efficiently. And so to that end, just to make sure everyone knows, on Monday I wrote to the head of all 6 jurisdictional RTOs and ISOs to encourage them to share their experience regarding interconnection automation with the Commission, and I'm excited to hear about the progress with interconnection automation software and to hear their views on if and how FERC can support further development of these solutions. So I look forward to working with all my colleagues on the Commission to ensure our work complements this private sector implementation. Switching gears, and I'm almost done here, I also want to highlight E1 on today's agenda, which approves SPP's RTO West proposal. This is another expansion of market offerings in the West, and this will enable participants in the West to make the most efficient use of the existing generation and transmission resources, and that's good news for consumers and good news for building in more flexibility to meet load growth and power through stress events in the Western interconnection. One last note on winter performance. So I think happy spring, everyone. It's finally, in most of the country, we're seeing some spring weather, at least today we are. But I just want to, again, acknowledge the strong performance of our electric grid and gas network this winter. We had a number of severe cold weather events across the country, but the energy system was by and large reliable. And this wasn't an accident. It's a credit to the performance of the industry, NERC, and our commission, which pursued a number of reforms after winter storms Uri and Elliott to make the system more reliable and resilient to these cold weather events. And so I just want to say thank you for everyone who worked hard to make this happen, to ensure that consumers and households and homes had access to energy during stress events. And again, I'm just constantly reminded in this role that energy reliability, it's not just an economic imperative, but it's also central to public health and safety and keeping people comfortable in their homes. And so I look forward to this critical work with my colleagues. With that, I just want to note one more thing on Commission staff. Eric Vandenberg, Deputy Director of OER, has left the Commission. I want to thank Eric for his leadership and his public service. I had a chance to work with him when I was on staff in the Office of Energy Policy and in my current role as Deputy Director at the Office of Electric Reliability. So thank you, Eric, for your service. You'll be missed. With that, I'm done.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for recognizing Eric Vandenberg. Yes, absolutely. Commissioner C.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm saying happy spring takes on a different feeling in this position than it did for me a year ago. So happy spring to everyone. Like so many of my colleagues have said, I'm excited for the work that we have done over these past months and eager for what we have ahead. It's certainly true of this agency and of this sector together that there is a lot of good and important work to do, and it never ends. And I'm really grateful to be part of that. Before I turn very briefly to the consent agenda, I'd like to start with a personnel update from my office. In a couple of weeks, we will be wishing a fond and very bittersweet goodbye to Nate Menard, who is a legal advisor in my office, as he transitions back to private practice after a decade or more of public service in the Army and in agencies before he joined ours a number of years ago. We joke that his resume initially caught my eye because he attended law school in my original home state of Michigan. But in reality, his record and professionalism spoke for itself from the very beginning. And after working with him for several months, I count myself exceptionally fortunate that he agreed to take on this position to help get my office off the ground. His ability to home in on specific legal issues at stake, both in the matters in his portfolio and his previous expertise, and others in our office in areas he didn't have a background with, has been truly impressive. He's someone who appreciates a nerdy legal discussion about as much as I do, but he also gets the big picture and what's really at stake in the matters before him and looking at some of the cross-cutting issues that we're facing in the commission. Just as important, if not more important, he's been a key member of our team and the broader advisor team across the offices on the 11th floor. He's a stand-up human, he's a great colleague, and he's become a good friend, and we are sad to see him go, but sincerely wish him all the best. So thank you, Nate, for your service in the office. Turning back to the matters in front of us today, my colleagues have pointed out a number of the particular items, so I won't highlight those, but there are two general and brief observations as I was going through the final list of orders as we were preparing for today. First, we continue to have Order 2023 compliance filings in front of us, and I'm glad to see that. And that always strikes me because in 7 out of the 8 commission meetings that I have been part of since I joined the commission last summer, that's been true. We've seen these compliance filings coming in. And when we issue rules, I think it's easy to think that the hard work is done when that finally goes out the door. But this has been a constant and important reminder for me that that's far from true. The hard work of compliance, analyzing how the rules apply in particular contexts and submitting filings from industry and the RTOs and other entities, and then our staffs and our own reviews balancing fair and uniform application of that rule with recognition that one size fits all isn't always best and it can be appropriate to have exceptions. All that takes a lot of time and resources. And I don't want anyone to hear that I'm saying that that's not worth it, because I think Order 2023 is a good example of an issue. Measures to make it faster for resources to interconnect to meet the increasing load demands right now is critically important. So I think there's a lot of important work to be done. But one of the things that's important to me, and I know to my colleagues as well, is as we take stock to make sure that these actions we're taking are worth the costs that are not as readily seen. And I appreciate that reminder this month and every month in this particular context. And then the second observation is every time our secretary notes the number of orders that the commission has voted out between meetings, that's always sobering. And it reminds me how surprised personally I was when I learned just how busy this agency was when I was preparing to take on this position. FERC is a really busy agency, and the vast majority of that work is in response to applications and filings for changes that we get when it comes to increasing and expanding development and trying to streamline market rules for efficiency and important improvements across the industry. And we couldn't do all that without the expert and hardworking teams that we have here at the Commission, not just those who work on the agenda items that we highlight once a month, but the dozens that we vote out between meetings and the hundreds and thousands that we do every year. FERC's mission of enhancing reliable energy, timely infrastructure review, ensuring just and reasonable rates flowing from a fair interstate electricity market, this is needed now more than ever, and I'm supremely grateful for everyone who is committed to helping us do that job well. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
And let me note, Nate, your leaving is not only a loss to Commissioner C, but a loss to the 11th floor. So sorry to see you go, but good luck. Get those timesheets ready. I've done them, believe me. Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First, I want to thank you for your leadership, as well as the team at the Office of Executive Director, especially Anton and Eddie, who has just been working extremely hard in the last few months, really leading our agency through some changes, as well as making sure we continue to function as an agency to deliver affordable and reliable energy to the consumers and customers across this country. In a very much increasing complex world. So thank you very much, and the Commission is really in good hands under your leadership. Over the last month, my team and I have had a very productive month, particularly engaging with many stakeholders. We had a chance to visit the Gulf, and which is a great reminder to really go and see firsthand some of the infrastructure that powers this nation and many other nations that this country has devoted to do. And hearing from the people that are directly affected by the infrastructure and the energy that it produces really opened my eyes. So I think this kind of engagement really helped us see the value of various different types of infrastructure under FERC's purview and understand the economic and the social implications, both the benefits and the risks for all. And as a member of this commission, I take that balance very seriously, and I look forward to applying some of the lessons learned from visiting both the communities and infrastructure development to apply this kind of engagement to everything I do here. We're clearly at the pivotal stage in this energy landscape, and we must be ready to adapt our processes and perspectives in meeting the moment. And we heard that at many conferences, especially at CERAWeek in Houston, but also across many other conferences and in the trade press. I also had an opportunity with my team to attend the MISO Board of Director meeting in New Orleans, and I appreciate the invitation to speak to the board and MISO stakeholders to hear about the efforts underway to address both near-term and the longer-term strategic efforts to meet the challenges, including interconnection and transmission planning that my colleagues have talked a lot about. Turning to today's orders, I just want to briefly also touch on E1, which we approve SPP's RTO West filing. This is another major milestone for the market evolution in the western part of the U.S. I'm excited to see that SPP will be operating an RTO that cuts across both the western and eastern interconnection. And with that, I hope to see the benefits that SPP and all its market participants aim to achieve by optimizing the flows across the interties between the West and the East. This is an exciting moment. And as with Markets Plus, I recognize there's still a lot of work to be done before the RTO West actually goes live, particularly with respect to managing the seams that my colleagues talked about, as well as the interconnection and transmission planning processes as we start integrating the West and the East at the border within the SPP. So it is important that we get this right, as I said before in other dockets. It's important that we get this right at the beginning as much as possible. So I encourage SPP to submit future implementation filings with all the necessary details to provide maximum transparency and certainty for market participants and other stakeholders. So with that, I hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Secretary, I think we have a report here, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman mentioned, since the February 2025 open meeting, the commission issued 57 notational orders. Since the issuance of the Sunshine Act notice on March 13th, 2025, no items have been stricken from this morning's agenda. Your consent items are as follows. Electric items, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, E11, E12, E13, E14, E15, E16, and E17. Hydro item H1. Certificates items C1, C3, C4, and C5. Chairman Christie is not participating in E17 on today's agenda. Commissioner C is not participating in E8 on today's agenda. Commissioner Chang is not participating in E14 on today's agenda. We will now take a vote on this morning's consent agenda items. The vote begins with Commissioner Chang.
Noting that I'm not participating in item E14, I vote aye for the rest.
Commissioner C.
Other than E8, where I'm not participating, I vote yes.
Commissioner Rosner,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Phillips,
I vote aye.
and Chairman Christie.
Noting not participating in E17, I vote aye.
We have one item for discussion and presentation on this morning's agenda. A3, the 2024 State of the Market Report and Presentation. There will be a presentation by Taylor Webster and David Smith from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation. They are accompanied by James Burchill, also from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation. There will be a PowerPoint presentation for this item. You may begin.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. The Office of Energy Policy and Innovation is pleased to present a summary of the 2024 State of the Markets Report. In our presentation today, we will discuss the report's key findings regarding market fundamentals and spotlight a few topics. The report covers significant market trends and fundamentals for the year 2024. It also discusses emerging issues.
Excuse me, Taylor, is your mic on?
It appears to be on. Can you not hear
Maybe you
me?
need to move the mic up a little bit.
How's that?
Oh, okay, good.
That one's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, apologies.
I can hear you because I can see you. But for people who can't,
Absolutely. So the report discusses emerging issues in electricity and natural gas markets, including market rule changes and infrastructure developments. At the end of the report, an almanac presents data underlying market fundamentals for the year. The complete report is available on the Commission's website, or will be available on the Commission's website, FERC.gov. Next slide. So this slide shows our key findings on market fundamentals for 2024. We highlight a few of those findings today. On the natural gas side, we discuss prices and demand, and on the electric side, we discuss generation capacity, consumption, load growth, and finally, transmission investment. Before turning to those market fundamentals, we start with a summary of prices for 2024. Average wholesale electricity prices declined significantly compared to 2023. Compared to the 5-year average, prices were down 23% across major trading hubs. These price trends were driven by changing supply conditions, fuel costs, and regional demand fluctuations. Natural gas prices at major hubs declined year over year due primarily to higher than average storage levels. Lower residential and commercial sector natural gas consumption was offset by increased exports and an increase in natural gas consumed for electricity generation, known as power burn. Next slide. As shown on this slide, prices at major natural gas hubs declined year over year for 2024. At the start of the year, natural gas prices spiked at many trading hubs in mid-January due to cold weather that swept across the United States. The rest of 2024 saw natural gas price declines, which reversed the year-over-year price increases seen at most hubs in 2023. In 2024, the benchmark price at Henry Hub averaged $2.25 per million British thermal units, or million BTU, an 11% decline from 2023. The slight decline in natural gas prices at Henry Hub was in response to limited growth in natural gas demand and a modest decrease in total production, which sustained higher than average storage levels carried over from last year. Notably, prices declined the most year over year at SoCal Gas Citygate and PG&E Citygate, both in California. Prices declined by 62% at SoCal Gas and almost 50% at PG&E Citygate. The Waha Hub, located in West Texas, had the lowest natural gas spot prices among major trading hubs in 2024, averaging 5 cents per million BTU compared to $1.25 per million BTU in 2023. Prices at the Waha Hub are typically lower than those at most natural gas trading hubs in the country due to a combination of limited natural gas pipeline takeaway capacity and growing gas production associated with oil-focused drilling. Natural gas production increased most in the Permian region, increasing by 13% compared to 2023, while most other regions had modest decreases in production. Because natural gas is a primary fuel for power generation, accounting for 42% of generation in 2024, lower natural gas prices also helped to reduce wholesale electricity prices. Lower natural gas prices also contributed to natural gas-fired generators producing more electricity to displace electricity produced by more costly coal-fired generators. Next slide. This slide shows that in 2024, demand for natural gas in the United States averaged almost 103 billion cubic feet per day, or BCFT, while domestic consumption averaged approximately 90 BCFD for the year. Annual growth in natural gas demand in 2024 was limited to 0.5%, a slowdown compared to the 5-year average growth rate of about 3%. This graph shows the totals and percent growth of natural gas demand by sector. Demand from gas-fired electric power plants, the largest component of U.S. natural gas demand, reached a new annual average high of almost 37 BCFD, which is an increase of more than 4% from 2023. Overall, net exports decreased by 2.5% from 2023 to 2024. The United States remained a net importer of natural gas from Canada, importing 7.4% more than it did in 2023. Liquefied natural gas, or LNG, exports from the United States increased slightly in 2024. This increase was due in part to increases in available LNG export capacity from 2 new LNG projects that came online in 2024. The United States exported on average approximately 12 BCFD of LNG to 45 countries via tankers in 2024, with nearly 2/3 of total U.S. LNG volumes being shipped to Europe. Gross pipeline exports of natural gas also increased by about 2% from 2023. Regarding natural gas infrastructure, the growth of LNG exports has supported pipeline construction in recent years in the South Central region, which spans from Kansas to Texas and Mississippi. Approximately half of the pipeline capacity additions from the last 5 years located in or connected to the South Central region are designed to provide feedstock to LNG export terminals. I will now turn over to my colleague, David Smith, to continue with the electricity and further infrastructure portions of the presentation. Next slide.
Taylor. As shown in this slide, the U.S. added significant new generation capacity in 2024 on the supply side for electricity. The additions in generation capacity totaled 49 gigawatts of nameplate capacity, primarily from solar, natural gas, battery storage, and wind. ERCOT led the way with 13.4 gigawatts of new capacity. Major capacity additions included the 1,114 megawatt Vogtle Unit 4 nuclear reactor in Georgia and large-scale solar farms in Nevada, Illinois, and Texas. Battery storage also nearly doubled from 2023 to 2024, from 6.4 gigawatts to 10.4 gigawatts, with most of the additions coming from ERCOT and CAISO. At the same time, 9.1 gigawatts of resources retired in 2024. Much of it was natural gas and coal capacity. Overall, in 2024, coal retirements totaled 4.5 gigawatts and natural gas retirements totaled 4 gigawatts. MISO experienced the highest number of retirements at 3.6 gigawatts. We note the capacity additions and retirements cannot be compared on a one-for-one basis because different resource types have different operating characteristics and capabilities, and as such, their expected availabilities and capacity factors will differ. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates total electricity consumption rebounded in 2024 after a dip in 2023, with an average increase of 2.8% nationwide. The largest growth occurred in PJM and ERCOT, where consumption rose by 3.9% and 3.8% respectively. Weather played a significant role, with colder winters and hotter summers pushing demand higher in various parts of the country. ERCOT, CAISO, and ISO New England set new daily peak electricity demand records in 2024. ERCOT set its daily peak electricity demand in the winter, while CAISO and ISO New England set their daily peak electricity demand in the summer. While overall electricity sales increased from 2020 to 2024 by 244 gigawatt hours, or 6.6%, electricity sales increased the most to commercial and industrial customers from 2020 to 2024. Electricity sales to commercial customers increased by 147 gigawatt hours, or 11.4%, and electricity sales to industrial customers increased by 72 gigawatt hours, or 7.5%. Electricity sales to residential customers increased by 25 gigawatt hours, or 1.7%, and electricity sales to transportation customers increased by 0.48 gigawatt hours, or 7.5%. Next slide, please. After several years of relatively flat growth, some RTOs and ISOs face increased growth in electricity demand, driven by factors such as weather, electrification, the expansion of data centers, and manufacturing. As shown in this slide, half of the RTOs and ISOs saw increases in peak load, while half saw decreases between 2023 and 2024. Also, as seen on this slide, CAISO experienced the largest percentage increase at 8.3%, and NISO experienced the largest percentage decrease in peak load of 4%. Next slide, please. As shown in this slide, over 450 new transmission projects entered service in 2024, and nearly 5,000 circuit miles were added. Most of the transmission investment occurred at the 138 kilovolt level, and 22% of transmission projects completed in 2024 occurred at or above the 230 kilovolt level. As seen in the chart, which shows circuit miles added in 2024 by region, reliability was the primary driver of these projects, with CAISO completing the most miles of any region. ERCOT, MISO, PJM, and ISO New England also made significant transmission investments in 2024. Some of the largest projects included the Pacific Gas and Electric System Hardening Distribution Program in California, and the Cardinal Hickory Creek 345 kilovolt line in Iowa and Wisconsin. Next slide, please. We close with observations about the interconnection queues nationwide in 2024. For the first time in several years, the total capacity of active projects waiting in the interconnection queues declined on an annual basis. Total capacity active in interconnection queues at the end of 2024 totaled 2,289 gigawatts. Most current active capacity comes from solar, standalone storage, and hybrid storage projects, totaling nearly 81% of the nationwide interconnection queues at the end of 2024. Most of the capacity that entered the queue during 2024 was natural gas generation and hybrid storage. Next slide, please. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. This concludes staff's prepared remarks. As mentioned earlier, the full report includes additional information and will be posted on the Commission's website. We appreciate the opportunity to present here today, and we are happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you all. That was a great, good report. I highly recommend to everybody get a copy of the full thing, not just the Cliff Notes, and read it. It's a lot of good information in there. A lot of good information. I've got a question and a comment. Can you go back to the slide with the key findings? Is it up there yet? Yeah, very good. There it is. It's not on our TV yet, but anyway, I know what it is. There we go. The first bullet, lower wholesale electricity prices for 2024. I want to ask you about that because a 3 days ago, after I finished your all's report, I got another great report. It comes from the PJM Independent Market Monitor, and I highly recommend that as well. I wait for this every year, and it's excellent as always. But one of the things the IMM and PJM says, and I focus on PJM because it's the largest grid operator in the country, and we live in it. No other reason. In PJM, according to the Market Monitor, wholesale power prices actually went up. They didn't go down; they went up. LMP went up by almost 8%, and the overall total cost of wholesale power went up by almost 5%. So I'm not saying there's a discrepancy, but PJM is the largest operator by load, and Dr. Bowering reports that their wholesale power costs went up almost 5%. How do you reconcile?
Yeah. So, okay. Though on average, wholesale, on peak prices declined. In PJM, prices were slightly higher. I think we note that it was about 4% higher at PJM, the representative trading hub in PJM. But the report also notes that PJM's prices were about 10% lower than the 5-year average in 2024. But also on average, for the nationwide number, PJM's prices could be considered offset by rather significant decreases elsewhere, such as ERCOT North Hub and CAISO SP15, where prices decreased 40-50% on average. The other thing to note is that there are several ways to look at prices, and I believe those numbers that you're referencing are all-in costs, which is not what we're able to report. So, capacity transmission costs are part of all-in wholesale costs, while this is not something that we're able to discuss in the report this year.
So your wholesale prices, are they just energy prices in the energy market? You don't look at capacity markets, and you don't look at right? It's just energy costs in pure energy costs. Is it just LMP? What is it you're looking at?
Yeah, it's LMP.
Okay.
Yes, it's LMP.
So in PJM, LMP was up 8%, but everywhere else was so far down that it led to a national decrease. That's what I'm trying to.
That's the top line. Yeah, most places were down significantly. Like I said, CAISO, ERCOT, we're looking at 30, 40, 50% down from 2023.
30, 40% down in LMP?
For several regions, yes.
Okay. All right. The other point I was going to make, this is a point, not a question. For consumers, wholesale prices are not what consumers pay. Consumers pay retail prices, right? And retail prices were up last year everywhere. So from a consumer standpoint, there's the actual retail prices that affect consumers' monthly bills, they were up. These are just wholesale energy prices that you all reporting, right? Okay. All right, thanks. Let's move on. Questions, Commissioner Phillips?
I do have a quick question. First of all, I want to thank you for the report. It's excellent, as the chairman said. It takes a lot of time, but it's time well spent. I want to talk briefly about load growth. So I noticed in the report that total electric consumption continues to rebound year over year. We've also seen many utilities revise up their forecasts going forward. Can you tell me a little bit more about what we can take from your report about what load growth will look like? Help me see around the corner a little bit for 2025 and beyond.
Sure. So in the report, we examined 2024 and observed that peak load grew in about half of RTO ISOs from 2023 to 2024, which mirrors the 5-year trend in peak load. This increase has been driven by factors such as electrification, expansion of data centers, manufacturing. And while we are focusing on 2024, this report also notes that several RTOs and ISOs are projecting significant load growth for 2025 and beyond.
That's it from me. Thank you again. Sure.
Mr. Rosner.
Taylor, David, and James, thank you very much for the presentation. You did a great job. In my time outside of FERC and at FERC, I've always been a huge consumer of the information in your State of the Market report, so thank you for putting together, you and team. One quick question that just to stay on the topic of load additions. I think we all read the news here. We're seeing that large load additions, data centers, reshoring manufacturing, that's driving load forecast trends up. And one question I have is, I don't doubt the direction of change, but I wonder whether you can speak to any efforts that the RTOs and ISOs are taking to ensure that they're counting new loads that will actually show up with high probability. So as we on this commission, we spend a lot of time on interconnection queues, and there's this parallel in my mind in the approach we took in Order 2023, where we implement a lot of forms to ensure that the projects entering the generation side of the queue are actually real. And so I'm wondering, is there any logic that can be carried over from getting more certain about generation entering the queue that can be carried over to the load interconnection side to ensure that we're only counting load that is real or that is highly probable to be real?
So I'll say that we do know that the RTOs and ISOs and planners generally have similar concerns, whether planned large loads are actually going to become actual demand. So Commission staff has done some discussions with the RTO ISOs, and they've expressed that they're working with their stakeholders and they're also working internally to better understand which requests for large loads are likely to materialize and when, and then adjusting their forecasts accordingly. But again, it's challenging and it's kind of different everywhere.
Great. Well, thank you for the answer.
Mr. C.
Again, thank you very much to you all and the rest of the team for your work here. This is really helpful. A lot of times, we're voting in individual items and just looking at that particular snapshot. So the work you do to help us see trends is really helpful context for that work and a great resource to the public. This report is one of the few things that I was aware of in terms of reports that FERC makes available before I joined the commission. So really grateful for that work and really commend it to everyone to have a chance to review. Our team has been and is looking forward to continuing to review this more, but just one question for you, and this one goes a little bit towards us. We're looking towards demands in the future for load growth, and we're looking at regional differences as well. I was curious from the natural gas production graphic. It looks like most of the production in regions of the U.S. has experienced a decline in production year over year, with an exception of the Permian Basin. So I'm curious about any takeaways or any more insight we can see there about different factors that lead to those different trends we're seeing.
Yeah, a few things with regard to the Permian. In the Permian, natural gas production has been bottled up for a while, which means that production capability in the region is greater than the amount of pipeline takeaway capacity, which is why we continue to see very low or even negative prices at Waha, like we discussed in the report. Anytime a new pipeline is built, it routinely becomes fully utilized. Second, the Permian Basin is a wet gas play, which means that producers are drilling for oil, and gas is essentially a byproduct. And though WTI crude oil prices have fallen recently, they still remain high enough to encourage existing well drilling and incentivize new well drilling. And lastly, the Permian Basin wells seem to be more productive due to advancements in drilling techniques. Essentially, there's been productivity increases there.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your hard work on this. And I also appreciate reading the report. I don't have any questions about the report. I do want to make a note about your comment about wholesale energy prices, particularly in the RTO ISO market, but really generally in the U.S., remains very sensitive to gas prices. The reason LMPs or energy prices are low is because gas prices remain to be low. And having been in the industry for several decades, we know that there are history where we were very happy when gas prices are low and not so happy when gas prices are high. And I just want to make a note that our electricity prices are very sensitive to gas prices, I would say probably across the entire U.S. But also, while energy prices are low, it also puts upward pressure on capacity prices to the places that have both centrally organized capacity markets or not have centrally organized capacity markets. The capacity prices, whether it's bilateral contracts or market prices, we're seeing this evidenced in PJM in the most visible way, but also in other regions we're seeing higher and higher prices in the capacity, which are sending signals, of course, to build new generation in theory, and we will see. So I'm actually looking forward to our technical conference on resource adequacy because hopefully we'll put some of these pictures together as we look at growth in the future, but just want to make that note. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, and thank you all again for the great work and good report. Appreciate it. Let's move on to closings. Commissioner Chang, you have any closing comments?
No comments.
Commissioner C? Rosner?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Somebody's got to have some. Well, I do. I do, because at noon today, the greatest show on earth starts, and that's the NCAA March Madness tournament. And my Final Four is Florida, Duke, Alabama, for him, and St. John's because Rick Pitino is amazing. What a coach. What a coach. And with that, I got nothing else. So thank you, everybody. We're done.
That was fun. Right, you moved the marker.